After 12 years of running my father's company, I finally made it worth $75 million. At a family dinner celebrating our success, my dad looked at me and said, smiling, "Your brother will take over now." My heart sank, but I smiled back. The next morning at work, everything changed. I still remember the way my father smiled that night, his hand resting proudly on my brother's shoulder as if he had already made up his mind long before speaking the words that would shatter everything. I felt my stomach drop, but years of practice kept my face composed. I smiled back as if his words didn't pierce straight through me, as if they weren't unraveling 12 years of my life's work in an instant. This wasn't just a family dinner. It was supposed to be a celebration, a moment meant to honor everything we had built. Everything I had built. But my father had already decided. Dylan would be taking over. Not me. And in that moment, I realized something. They had underestimated me, and tomorrow morning, they would learn exactly what that meant. The dining room was filled with the clinking of glasses, the quiet hum of conversations between extended family and close business associates. My father had started Caldwell Logistics Group. When I was just a child, a modest logistics business that barely stayed afloat in its early years. I grew up watching him struggle to keep it alive, working late nights, sacrificing family vacations, always chasing one more contract to make ends meet. I was 24 when I first asked to join the company. Fresh out of business school, armed with ideas and ambition. My father had looked at me across his desk, skepticism written all over his face. "Morgan, this is a tough business," he had said. "It's not really a place for women. The clients, the warehouse managers, the truck drivers, they expect to deal with men." I had felt the sting of his words, but refused to show it. "Then let me prove them wrong," I had replied. He had reluctantly agreed, giving me the smallest, most impossible account to manage. A regional contract everyone said was dead in the water. I closed that deal in 6 weeks. I remember the look on his face when I walked into his office with the signed contract. Surprise. Maybe a flicker of respect, but never quite belief. Not the kind that mattered. Over the next 12 years, I transformed Caldwell Logistics Group from a struggling $5 million regional firm into a national powerhouse. I expanded our operations into 6 new markets, secured multi-million-dollar contracts with Fortune 500 companies, integrated cutting-edge tracking technology that revolutionized our efficiency. What was once a small, nearly bankrupt company now stood as an industry leader worth $75 million. And my brother Dylan? He had spent those same 12 years hopping from one failed venture to another. First, it was a tech startup that burned through investor money in 8 months. Then a craft brewery that closed before it even opened. Then some cryptocurrency scheme that I didn't even bother asking about. Dylan wasn't interested in logistics. He wasn't interested in operations. He was interested in the idea of success without any of the work required to achieve it. But tonight, none of that mattered. My father had made his choice. I glanced across the table at my mother, Catherine. Her eyes met mine briefly, an unreadable expression flickering across her face. Unlike my father, she had always seen the effort I put in. She knew what this company meant to me, but she wouldn't interfere. She never did. In this family, my father's word was law. Dylan met my gaze from across the table, a smirk barely hidden at the corner of his lips. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just my father's decision. Dylan had been working toward this, positioning himself carefully, playing the role of the dutiful son who had finally found his calling. And my father, ever the traditionalist, saw no flaw in his logic. A son should inherit the empire. A daughter's efforts were always considered temporary, a footnote in history, no matter how hard she fought to prove otherwise. I raised my wine glass, my hand steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "To Dylan," I said, my voice smooth, controlled. The guests raised their glasses, oblivious to what was really happening. My father grinned with that same unwavering confidence, completely unaware that his choice had set something in motion, something he couldn't stop. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed every sacrifice I had made for Caldwell Logistics Group. The late nights when everyone else had gone home, the missed birthdays, the broken relationship with someone who couldn't understand why I worked so hard. The weekends spent in negotiations instead of living my life. I had given everything for this company, and now they expected me to simply step aside. I remembered a moment from childhood. I must have been 10 years old. My father had taken Dylan to a business conference, just the two of them. I had begged to go, but he had patted my head and said, "This isn't for you, sweetheart. Stay home with your mother." I had watched them leave, feeling invisible. That feeling had never really gone away. Until now. By 3 in the morning, I was in my home office, my fingers moving quickly across my keyboard. Every contract, every share agreement, every executive document. I knew the inner workings of this company better than anyone. Better than my father, certainly better than Dylan. While my father had been busy with public appearances and Dylan had been busy pretending to learn the business, I had been doing something else entirely. I had been securing control. I pulled up the shareholder agreements, the ones my father had signed without reading too carefully. The capital investment from 2017 when the company desperately needed expansion funds. The legal settlement from 2019 when I had personally resolved a lawsuit that could have bankrupted us. Each time, shares had been transferred. Small percentages that added up to something my father had never bothered to calculate. I did the math one more time, just to be certain. 35% original stake, 15% from the 2017 investment, 10% from the 2019 settlement, 60% total. Majority shareholder? Dylan thought he was walking into an easy transition, that by next week his name would be on the office door, his position secured. What he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that this company wasn't my father's to give away anymore. It was mine. And tomorrow morning, I would make sure they understood that. At exactly 8:45 in the morning, I stepped into Caldwell Logistics Group headquarters, just like I had for the past 12 years. The same walls, the same polished floors, the same hum of efficiency as employees settled into their routines. But today was different. Today, I wasn't walking into my office. I was walking into a battlefield. The reception area was unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that precedes a storm. The employees knew. The whispers had already started spreading through the building like wildfire. News of my father's announcement at dinner had reached them. I could feel their eyes on me as I walked past, hesitant expressions, avoiding direct eye contact, unsure of where their loyalty should lie. I didn't acknowledge them. I walked with confidence, my heels clicking against the marble floors, my posture unwavering, my face composed. Never let them see you shaken. Never let them see doubt. I had learned that lesson a long time ago. I entered my office and shut the door behind me. I had precisely 15 minutes before my father and Dylan arrived, thinking they would step into their new positions as CEO and heir apparent. 15 minutes before everything they had planned would crumble in front of them. I sat at my desk, inhaling deeply, then powered on my computer. The screen illuminated with the documents I had prepared the night before. Confidential contracts, shareholder agreements, legal filings. Everything they had never thought to look at, everything they had assumed didn't matter. I pulled up my ownership records, my hands hovering over the keyboard for a second before I clicked on the file labeled Executive Shareholders Agreement. And then I waited. At precisely 9 o'clock, there was a sharp knock at my door. I didn't bother responding. The door swung open and in walked my father and Dylan, both exuding confidence. My father's was inborn, the kind that came from decades of running his own company. Dylan's was carefully manufactured, the kind that came from believing he had already won. My father strode in like a king surveying his kingdom, while Dylan, dressed in an expensive navy suit, gave me a smug, triumphant grin. It took everything in me not to laugh. "Morgan," my father said in his usual authoritative voice, as if he were doing me a favor by acknowledging me. "I assume you're aware of the transition happening today." Transition. Interesting choice of words. "I'm aware," I said smoothly. Leaning back in my chair, I glanced at Dylan, whose smirk only widened. "Good," my father continued, nodding as if we were all in agreement. "Dylan will be stepping in as the new CEO. We'll need you to help with the handover. Get him familiar with the operations before you officially move on." I arched an eyebrow. "Move on?" I echoed, feigning confusion. "Dad, I think you're mistaken about something." His face twitched in irritation. He was used to my compliance, my ability to quietly fall in line. He wasn't prepared for this. Morgan, he said, his voice tight, as if speaking to a child, this isn't up for debate. We've already made the decision. I smiled then, a slow, knowing smile. Oh, I know, Dad. And Dad, I said softly. The thing is, you don't have the authority to make that decision. Dylan let out a low scoff, shaking his head. Morgan, don't make this difficult. We're trying to do this the easy way. I didn't respond. Instead, I reached for the remote control on my desk and pressed a button. The large screen on my office wall lit up with a document, the same one I had been reviewing earlier. Executive Shareholders Agreement, signed August 17th, 2015. Signatories, Morgan Caldwell, Richard Caldwell, Dylan Caldwell. My father's face paled slightly. I turned to Dylan. Do you even know what this document is? He crossed his arms, shifting uncomfortably. A shareholders agreement, he guessed. I nodded. Yes. And do you know what it says? I tapped the screen, highlighting a crucial clause. This document was drafted when Caldwell Logistics Group was restructuring. It clearly states that any transfer of executive power, such as appointing a new CEO, requires the approval of all majority shareholders. I met my father's eyes directly. And I, Dad, hold 60% of the company's shares. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father's expression hardened, his jaw clenching. Dylan stepped forward, snatching the document from the screen display. That's impossible, he muttered, scanning the pages. Actually, it's very possible, I said smoothly. You see, over the years, while you were busy failing at every startup you touched, Dylan, and Dad was busy playing the role of business patriarch, I was doing something else. I was securing my place. I turned back to my father. Remember when you needed capital for expansion in 2017? You signed over an additional 15% of your shares to me in exchange for my investment. And in 2019, when we had that legal battle that nearly destroyed us, another 10% was transferred under my name as collateral, which you never bothered reclaiming. That, plus my original 35% stake, makes me the majority shareholder. My father's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Dylan was panicking. You have to be lying, he spat. I pulled out a second document from my desk drawer. This is the most recent legal filing with the state. Want to verify it? I slid it across the desk. Dylan snatched the paper and scanned it, his face draining of color with each passing second. You can't do this, he stammered, turning to our father. Dad, tell her she can't do this. My father remained silent, because he knew. I had legally outmaneuvered him, and there was nothing he could do about it. I exhaled slowly, standing up. I'm not firing you, Dylan, I said, my voice even. I wouldn't want to force you into the real job market, but you will report to me, and you will work under my leadership. Otherwise, I gestured toward the door, you're free to leave. Dylan turned to my father, eyes pleading, desperate for him to fix this. But for the first time in his life, my father had no answer, no way to undo what I had done. Because this wasn't his company anymore. It was mine. The silence stretched on. Finally, my father spoke, his voice low and controlled. So that's it then. You're just taking everything. I met his gaze without flinching. Taking everything? I repeated. Dad, I built this company from nothing. Every contract, every expansion, every innovation, I made it happen. While Dylan was busy failing upwards, I was keeping this company alive. So no, I'm not taking anything. I leaned forward slightly. I'm just keeping what's already mine. My father stared at me as if he didn't recognize me. Perhaps he never had. You're making a mistake, Morgan, he said finally. Families should stick together. Do you really want to burn this bridge? I felt a sharp pang at his words, but I didn't let it show. Dad, I said slowly, you burned this bridge the moment you made your decision without me. His lips pressed into a thin line. We can find a solution that works for everyone. I tilted my head slightly. Oh, I agree. That's why I'm offering you both a choice. I turned to Dylan. You can stay in the company. You'll take on an advisory role with limited authority. Your salary will be generous, but you will answer to me. I paused. Or you can walk away. I'll buy out your shares at market value. You can take the money and find a new project. My father scoffed. You're acting like you hold all the cards. I smiled. I do. Dylan stormed out first, slamming the door behind him. Good riddance. My father lingered for a moment longer, as if waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, he gave a slow nod. You've changed, he said quietly. I met his gaze. No, Dad. I finally stopped pretending. Then he left, and I was alone. For the first time in 12 years, my office felt empty. No phone calls from my father, no passive-aggressive emails from Dylan, just silence. But silence didn't mean peace. It meant the battle had begun. I knew my father wouldn't walk away quietly, and Dylan, he would fight tooth and nail to reclaim what he thought was his birthright. I wasn't naive enough to think this was over. It had just begun. By the next morning, I could already feel the undercurrent of unease within the company. Employees who had greeted me with confidence last week now seemed hesitant, as if afraid to pick a side. A few department heads avoided eye contact in the hallways. I knew what was happening. My father and Dylan were working the Whisper network. Old family friends, board members, senior executives. They were sowing doubt, painting me as cold, ruthless, disloyal. Dylan especially had taken on the role of the wounded son, betrayed by his own sister. I could imagine him now, sitting in some high-end restaurant, fake sorrow in his voice as he told our investors how I had stolen the company out from under him. And my father, he wouldn't need to say much at all. Just a heavy sigh, a shaking of his head, the carefully placed words. I only ever wanted the best for my children. It was calculated, and it was dangerous. Because if they managed to turn my board members and top executives against me, they could push me out of my own company, or at least make my leadership impossible. I wasn't about to let that happen. That afternoon, I called an emergency executive meeting. As I stepped into the boardroom, I felt the tension in the air. Half of the room avoided my gaze. The other half watched me too closely, waiting for me to slip. I took my seat at the head of the table. My seat. Let's not waste time, I said, my voice even. I know there have been conversations behind closed doors over drinks in hushed voices. I let my eyes scan the room, pausing on each person just long enough to make them shift uncomfortably. I also know that some of you are wondering if my leadership is sustainable. A few people tensed. No one spoke. I tapped my fingers against the polished wood table. Let's clear that up now. I pulled up a presentation on the screen behind me. Numbers, data, facts. I built this company from a struggling regional business to a $75 million industry leader. Over the last 5 years under my leadership, we've seen a 300% increase in revenue and expanded into 6 new markets. I turned to the CFO. Paul, do we have a single financial indicator suggesting this company is in trouble under my leadership? Paul Jennings hesitated, then shook his head. No, in fact, projections show another 20% growth in the next quarter. I nodded. So let's be honest about what's happening here. I leaned forward. My father and brother aren't upset because the company is struggling. They aren't upset because I'm failing as a leader. They're upset because they expected me to step aside and let Dylan take over, regardless of qualifications, regardless of results. The room was silent. Then I dropped the reel. Bomb. I also know that some of you have been contacted in the last 24 hours, offered incentives to push for my resignation. I tilted my head slightly. If anyone here would like to disclose those conversations now, this is your chance. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Then, after a long pause, one of the senior executives cleared his throat. I received a call, he admitted. From your father. He said he was considering making an official appeal to the board. I nodded, unsurprised. And did he offer anything in return for your support? A pause, then a slow nod. There it is. I exhaled, standing up. My father built this company, I said. I won't discredit that, but I took it further than he ever could have, and I will not allow him to manipulate it from the outside. I let my voice drop slightly, controlled, dangerous. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. I gathered my papers, looking each executive in the eye. If anyone here believes my father and brother deserve control, now is the time to make your move. Silence. No one moved. Good, I said. I turned and walked out, my head held high. This wasn't just about keeping my company. This was about making sure they never thought they could take it from me again. That night, I made my own call. Not to a board member, not to an investor, but to an old friend in investigative journalism. I have something for you, I said, but you'll need to move fast. An hour later, I sent over documents, emails, financial reports, internal records, evidence that Caldwell Logistics Group, under my father's leadership years ago, had engaged in questionable business practices. Ones I had spent the last decade quietly cleaning up. Hidden debts, accounting irregularities, vendor kickbacks that skirted the edge of legality. The story broke within 24 hours. Behind the scenes at Caldwell Logistics, a legacy of hidden debts and financial cover-ups. The article was brutal. It praised my leadership for fixing the company's financial health. It criticized my father's mismanagement from the past. And most importantly, it proved that I was the only reason Caldwell Logistics Group had survived. Just like that, the narrative changed. The board stopped doubting me. The investors stopped hesitating. And my father, he had nowhere to hide. 2 days later, my father finally called me. I let the phone ring 3 times before answering. Morgan, he said, his voice tight. We need to talk. I leaned back in my chair. Do we? Silence, then finally a sigh. You didn't have to do that. I let out a small laugh. Neither did you. This company was supposed to be a legacy, he said. For the family, for both of you. I felt a familiar pang, a tiny, foolish part of me that had once wanted that too, but not anymore. Dad, I said quietly, if you wanted me to protect the legacy, you should have trusted me with it. Instead, you tried to take it from me. Another long silence, then he asked, almost reluctantly, what happens now? I exhaled slowly. Now? Now I make sure you can never touch my company again. The war was over. My father had lost. Dylan had disappeared. And I had won. But as I sat in my office that evening, staring out over the city skyline, I felt no satisfaction. No triumph, just emptiness. I had spent 12 years fighting for Caldwell Logistics Group, building it, protecting it, making it stronger than ever before. And yet the cost of that victory weighed heavier than I had expected, because while I had secured my position, I had lost something else along the way. My family. The next day, I walked into the office as if nothing had changed, but everyone knew the truth. The whispers had stopped, the doubt had faded. I was no longer just Morgan Caldwell, the CEO. I was Morgan Caldwell, the woman who had outmaneuvered her father and brother and come out on top. Some respected me for it, some feared me, and some still waited for me to fall. I let them wait. At noon, my father and I met in the conference room for what would be our final discussion. He looked tired, older, as if the weight of what had happened had finally settled on his shoulders. I waited for him to speak first. When he finally did, his voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. I'm retiring, he said simply. Effective immediately. I didn't react. I had expected this. I'll sell my remaining shares, he continued. I'll keep a small percentage as an investor, but I won't be involved anymore. I studied him carefully. And Dylan? His jaw tightened. He's gone. Took the buyout. He won't be back. A part of me had known it would end this way. Dylan had never been strong enough to fight his own battles. Once it was clear he had lost, he had done what he always did. He ran. Still, hearing it out loud made something inside me ache. Not regret, not guilt, just the finality of it all. I nodded. Understood. My father exhaled, rubbing his temple as if he had a headache. Then, after a long pause, he said something I never expected. I underestimated you. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing I would ever get. And strangely, I found that I didn't need it anymore. 1 week later, I had a conversation I hadn't expected. My mother, Catherine, called and asked to meet for lunch. We sat in a quiet restaurant, the kind of place where serious conversations happened. "I'm proud of you," she said simply, her hands folded on the table. I looked at her, surprised. "I always knew you were the right choice," she continued. "Your father, he couldn't see it. He was too stuck in his ways, too traditional. But I saw it. I'm sorry I never fought for you. But I'm proud you fought for yourself." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than cold determination. A brief moment of warmth, of connection. "Thank you," I said softly. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Make it yours, Morgan. Make it something he never could have built." And that's exactly what I did. A month later, Caldwell Logistics Group looked nothing like it had before. The old board members who had aligned themselves with my father and Dylan were gone. The executives who had questioned my leadership were replaced. The company had always been strong under my guidance, but now it was truly mine. And with that control came a new vision. I introduced initiatives my father had always rejected, modernized systems he had called unnecessary, expanded into industries he had been too cautious to explore. Within 6 months, profits soared. Within a year, we had crossed the $100 million mark. I closed a massive deal with a national shipping consortium, the kind of contract my father had once said was impossible for a company our size. When the papers were signed, I sat alone in my office, allowing myself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Not because I had beaten my father, but because I had proven to myself what I was capable of. A year after everything had happened, I met my father for dinner. It was the first time we had spoken since his retirement. He looked different, quieter. He wasn't angry anymore, just accepting. "I read about the latest deal you closed," he said over his drink. "It was a smart move." I smirked slightly. "I know." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. There was no tension between us anymore. No war left to fight. Only the simple, undeniable truth. He had tried to push me aside, and I had proved him wrong. He lifted his glass. "To Caldwell Logistics Group," he said. This time, when I clinked my glass against his, I didn't feel anger or resentment, only peace. Because I had already won. And I no longer needed his approval to know it. As I sit in my office today, overlooking the city that I built my empire in, I think about the lessons this journey has taught me. That family can be your biggest enemy. That loyalty is a currency, not a guarantee. That power is never given, it's taken. But most importantly, that sometimes the best way to prove your worth is to stop seeking validation and build something so strong that they can never ignore you again. I have no regrets. Caldwell Logistics Group is mine now, and I intend to make sure no one ever forgets it. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated or overlooked? Subscribe for more stories of people who refused to back down and claimed what was rightfully theirs.
The bank statement trembles in my hand, a living thing pulsing with dread. I clutch it tighter, but the numbers, $5 each month for 2 years, blur and swim before my eyes, mocking me. My pulse hammers in my ears, a relentless drumbeat, as I stand frozen in my parents' living room. The air chokes with the cloying scent of Linda's lavender diffuser, a smell that once meant home, but now claws at my throat. My boots sink into the worn carpet, the same spot where I used to sprawl with crayons. Invisible, even then. "We have proof now, Serene. You've been lying to us." Linda's voice slices through the silence, sharp and precise, each word a blade honed over years of practice. She sits on the edge of the couch, her posture rigid, her graying hair pulled into a tight bun that matches the accusation in her eyes. Tom looms beside her, his broad shoulders squared, his finger jabbing at the paper in my hand. The force of it makes me flinch, a reflex I can't unlearn. "We thought you were sending $1,500, he growls, his voice gravelly from decades of barking orders, at me, at the world. "But this? Pennies." His hazel eyes, so like mine, narrow into slits of betrayal. I blink hard, trying to make sense of the impossible. $5, not $1,500. My chest tightens, a vice squeezing out the air I didn't know I was holding. "I've been sending it," I whisper, my voice thin, unsteady. The words feel like a plea, but they don't hear me. They never do. Linda scoffs, that familiar sound, a short, dismissive huff I've known since I was 16, clutching a scholarship letter that wasn't enough. "Don't lie, Serene. It's right here." She gestures to the statement, her manicured nail tapping the evidence of my failure. Across the room, Ashley leans against the wall, arms crossed over her leather jacket. She's 25, 3 years younger than me, but she carries herself like she owns the place. Silver hoop earrings glint as she tilts her head, examining her chipped nail polish with studied boredom. Something flickers across her face. Not guilt, not triumph, just a shadow I can't name. The light catches her new smartwatch, a sleek thing I don't recognize. My stomach twists, a cold thread pulling tight. "I don't understand," I say, louder now, but the words dissolve into the lavender haze. The room spins, a carousel of accusation, and I'm the only one dizzy. They stare at me, Linda with her cutting certainty, Tom with his righteous fury, Ashley with her silent calculation. The statement slips in my grip, and I know whatever comes next will unravel everything I've built. The warehouse hums at midnight, a beast that never sleeps. I'm 28, but my body feels older, hunched over a clipboard at Horizon Food Co., the fluorescent glare searing my retinas until they ache. The memory hits me with physical force as I stand in that living room, the bank statement still burning my palm. 2 years of this, counting pallets, scanning barcodes, my lower back screaming with every twist. The concrete floor chills my feet through my sneakers, a cold that seeps into my bones and stays. I choke down granola bars on 10-minute breaks, the kind that taste like cardboard and desperation. No time for real meals, no energy for anything but the next shift. My hands, rough from handling crates, tremble as I log numbers under lights that buzz like angry wasps. It's for them, I tell myself. Linda, Tom, the family I owe. The $1,500 I scrape together each month, wired to the account Ashley swore would help. Weekends vanish into the delivery app grind. I drive through suburbs, smiling at strangers who never look up, their groceries thumping onto porches while I calculate tips in my head. My car smells of stale coffee and regret, the dashboard clock ticking past midnight again. "Just a little longer," I whisper to the empty passenger seat, my voice hoarse from exhaustion. 2 jobs, 2 years, all for that $1,500. My blood, my sweat, my life, distilled into a bank transfer. Back at the warehouse, the forklift's whine drowns out my thoughts. I cancel plans, dinners with Mia, movies I can't afford, because every dollar counts. My reflection in the break room mirror shows sunken eyes, a jaw clenched against the ache. I've given everything, carved myself hollow to keep them afloat. The thought steadies me through the endless nights, a mantra against the pain. They need me. They need this. Now standing here, the statement in my hand whispers a different truth. $5, not $1,500. The memory of those nights, the fluorescent burn, the protein bar grit, the stranger's doors, crashes into me, a wave I can't outrun. My knees buckle, just for a second, before I catch myself. How can it be wrong? How can 2 years of breaking my back amount to this? The lavender air thickens, and I realize I've been running on a treadmill that's never moved. Back in the living room, the air crackles, a storm about to break. Tom folds his arms across his chest, the same stance he took when I begged for college help at 18. "You owe us $30,000 in back payments," he announces, his voice a judge's gavel. My breath catches, a sharp hitch I can't hide. 30,000. The number lands like a brick on my chest, crushing the last of my air. Linda gestures to the statement, her hand slicing the space between us. "We can see the transactions. Serene. $5 a month. That's it. Her tone is final, a verdict I can't appeal. I blink at the paper, my proof of sacrifice reduced to a lie I didn't write. I've been sending the money, I say, louder now, my voice shaking but holding. Every month for 2 years. She scoffs again. That sound I've memorized. High school, the scholarship, the couch that became my bed when Ashley needed my room for her yoga mats. Don't play games, she snaps. I look to Ashley, seeking something, shock, confusion, anything human. She glances away, suddenly captivated by the curtains, her smartwatch glinting as she shifts. The cold seeps deeper, a realization crystallizing. She knows. 2 years ago, over brunch, her idea sparkled. Let's each send $1,500 a month, she'd said, her hazel eyes wide, sincere. They've done so much for us. I'd nodded, squeezed my budget until it bled, picked up that second job. It's easier this way, she'd insisted, handing me an account number. I'll make sure they get it. Now, her silence screams louder than Linda's accusations. Show me Ashley's transfers, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Tom's eyes narrow. Serene, he warns, low and dangerous. Linda's tone shifts, softens, the one she saves for her golden child. Ashley's been supporting us more than enough. My spine stiffens, a flicker of steel I didn't know I had. Show me her transfers, right now. Ashley pushes off the wall, her leather jacket rustling. I just remembered. I've got a work thing, she says, her voice too bright, too brittle. She's out the door before anyone can blink, her footsteps quick on the hardwood. I grab my phone, hands trembling but sure, and pull up my banking app. The screen glows, every 1,500 withdrawal, a digital scar of my sacrifice, sent to the account she gave me. I look up, meeting Tom's gaze, then Linda's. They stare back, a united front of entitlement and blame. I have proof, I say quietly, of every payment. Linda waves her hand dismissive. Just show us the account number. I turn the screen toward them, the string of digits stark and undeniable. Tom squints, then his face darkens. That's not our account, he mutters. The room tilts, and I know. The truth is about to crack wide open. The driveway stretches before me, twilight bleeding into the gravel as Ashley's Jeep idles, a low growl cutting the dusk. My heart slams against my ribs, a caged thing breaking free. I burst through the front door, legs carrying me with a strength I didn't know I owned. She's hunched over the steering wheel, thumbs flying across her phone, oblivious until my palm slams her window. The bang echoes, and my phone screen lights my face, evidence glowing in the gathering dark. She jumps, her phone clattering into her lap. For a split second, her eyes, hazel like mine but colder, widen with real fear before she smooths her features and rolls the window down a cautious inch. Serene, what the hell? She snaps, but her voice wavers, a crack in her armor. Where's the money, Ashley? My voice doesn't sound like mine, low, hard, a stranger's fury. Where's the $36,000 I've sent for the last 2 years? Her manicured fingers tighten on the wheel, knuckles blanching under her silver rings. You're being ridiculous, she says, but the confidence slips, a thread unraveling. I shove my phone through the gap, the screen blazing with truth. Look at these transfers. Every month. $1,500 to the account you gave me. I scroll, the list endless. 2 years of double shifts, canceled plans, nights I fell into bed too tired to dream. The same account you said would help them. Her facade fractures. Her shoulders slump, the smartwatch sliding down her wrist. I needed it for my lifestyle blog, she whispers, eyes on the dashboard. The clothes, the trips. You know how expensive it is to keep up. A laugh tears from me, too sharp, too hollow, slicing the air between us. Your blog? I echo, the word tasting like ash. She finally looks at me, and what I see chills me more than her confession. No remorse, just calculation. a predator sizing up prey. They believe whatever I tell them, she says with a small shrug. They always have. The casual cruelty knocks the wind from me, a punch I didn't see coming. My sister, my blood, built her life on my bones. I step back, the gravel crunching under my boots, needing space from her poison. You're my sister, I say, barely audible, a plea she doesn't deserve. She revs the engine, her jaw tight. And you're the fool funding my posts. She shifts into reverse, tires spinning. Good luck convincing them it's not your fault. The Jeep, my Jeep, really, paid for with my sweat, backs down the driveway, taillights flaring red in the dusk. I stand there, the phone warm in my hand, the lavender scent fading behind me. My parents wait inside, still hungry for their pound of flesh. For the first time, my spine straightens, not bending under their weight, but rising against it. I turn toward the house, purpose in every step, ready to face the storm I've ignited. The living room suffocates me as I step back inside, the air stale with entitlement and lavender. My phone burns in my hand, the screen still glowing with every $1,500 transfer. A lifeline I thought I'd thrown them now, tangled around my neck. Linda perches on the couch, her bun tighter than ever, her eyes flicking between me and the evidence I've thrust into their world. Tom sits in his recliner, arms crossed, his jaw set like he's about to lecture me back to obedience. I plant my feet, the carpet, soft but unsteady, beneath me. I have proof, I say quietly, placing the phone on the coffee table between us. The numbers stare up, neat rows of sacrifice. 2 years, every month, $1,500 sent to Ashley's account. She admitted it outside. She took all of it. My voice steadies with each word, a thread of steel weaving through the tremor. I wait for the explosion, the outrage on my behalf, the parental fury at such a betrayal. Instead, Linda's expression softens, her head tilting in that way she reserves for Ashley, her golden child. She's still young, she says with a sigh, her tone a velvet glove over a fist. She makes mistakes. Tom picks up my phone, squints at the transactions, then sets it down with deliberate care, like he's handling a fragile lie. It's just money, Serene, he says, waving a hand as if $36,000 is pocket change. Why are you being so dramatic? The floor tilts beneath me, their words a warped mirror, reflecting someone I don't recognize. Dramatic? I echo, my voice rising despite myself. She stole $36,000 from me. Linda cuts in, sharp and quick. If you'd sent it to our account, this wouldn't have happened. I stare at them, these strangers who raised me, their faces a mask of blame I've worn thin. Why would I send it to Ashley's account in the first place, I ask, the question hanging heavy. Tom's face flushes, a rare crack in his armor. Because of the Social Security benefits, he snaps as if it's obvious. We needed it hidden. The final piece slots into place with sickening clarity, a puzzle I didn't want to solve. From the government, I say slowly, the words bitter on my tongue. Linda waves her hand, a gesture eerily like Ashley's shrug in the Jeep. Everyone does it. You had me commit tax fraud, I whisper, the realization a cold wave crashing over me. Tom stands, his height no longer towering but hollow. Either pay the $30,000 you owe us or we'll disown you, he says, his threat a blade aimed at my chest. Linda adds, and forget Grandpa Joe's inheritance. I turn without a word, my phone clutched tight, and walk out. The door slams behind me and I dial Mia, my voice breaking. I need help. My spine straightens, unbowed for the first time in years. My apartment feels smaller tonight, the kitchen table buried under bank statements, a graveyard of my sacrifice. 3 days have passed since the living room showdown, and I sit here, highlighter in hand, marking every $1,500 payment in neon yellow. The ink bleeds through the pages, a timeline of double shifts and missed sleep, each line a scar I'm reclaiming. My phone buzzes, 17 voicemails from Linda, 32 texts, 6 missed calls from cousins I haven't seen in years. Tom's been busy spinning his web. I snap photos from every angle. The cameras click a quiet rebellion. The evidence piles up, digital and tangible, a shield against their lies. Yesterday I met Greg, my financial advisor, in his leather-scented office. He leaned forward, his gray eyes sharp. "You've been manipulated into a tax evasion scheme, Serene. Your parents were hiding income through Ashley." I wasn't surprised, but hearing it aloud made my stomach clench, a knot I'm still untying. "What should I do?" I'd asked, my voice small but firm. "Document everything," he'd said, sliding a lawyer's card across his desk. "Distance yourself financially. Consider legal action." The card sits on my counter now, next to a support group brochure from last night. 6 strangers in folding chairs, nodding as I spoke of Ashley's theft, Linda's denial. Their understanding wrapped around me, a warmth I hadn't felt in years. My phone pings again. Ashley's Instagram glows with a selfie, her eyes glistening with staged tears. "Sometimes the ones you give everything to betray you," the caption reads. I screenshot it, add it to my folder labeled Family Lies, and block her. The highlighter squeaks across another statement, the yellow bright against the gray of my old life. 2 years of breaking my back, and they think I'll bend again. I won't. The room feels less cramped, the air lighter with each piece I gather. I'm building something new, not a cage, but a way out. The diner smells of coffee and bacon grease, a neutral ground I insisted on, far from their lavender trap. I slide into the booth, my parents' silver sedan already parked outside in its usual corner spot, safe from dings. Linda and Tom sit across from me, Ashley between them, her golden hair swept into a sleek ponytail, a united front. 3 menus lie untouched. They've waited for me, a rare courtesy that feels like a ploy. My purse digs into my side, a reminder of the boundary I'm here to draw. "We're glad you agreed to meet, Serene," Tom says, nodding like we're in a boardroom. Linda reaches across the table, her hand hovering short of mine when I don't offer it. "We just want to work this out, sweetheart," she says, her voice syrupy with concern. I notice the manila folder beside Tom's water glass, its edges crisp, and my gut tightens. "What's that?" I ask, my tone flat. Tom clears his throat, straightens his tie, a habit from his sales days. "We've been thinking about how to resolve this." Linda jumps in, too eager. "We know you're upset about the misunderstanding with Ashley, but—" I cut her off, my voice a blade. "It wasn't a misunderstanding. She stole from me, and you defended her." Ashley studies her napkin, her silence louder than any excuse. Tom slides the folder toward me, flips it open. A typed document stares up, highlighted sections glaring. $30,000 over 5 years plus $1,500 monthly going forward. "For what you still owe us," he says, his tone matter of fact. I trace the neat columns with my eyes, a 5-year plan to bleed me dry after 2 years of giving everything. "This seems fair," Linda adds, her smile brittle. "We're not asking for it all at once." Behind them, a waiter delivers food to another table, the scent of garlic and butter wafting over. My stomach growls. I forgot lunch again, a habit from cutting corners for their payments. I place my fingertips on the document, slide it back across the tablecloth with a soft whisper. "No," I say, the word simple, complete. Tom blinks. "What do you mean, no?" he asks, his voice tightening. "I mean, no." I push my chair back, stand, looking down at them for the first time I can remember. "I'm not paying you anything." Linda's hand flies to her throat, fingers grasping her silver necklace, a tick when she's rattled. "After everything we've done for you?" she gasps. "What, Mom? Name one sacrifice," I say, my voice steady, unyielding. Silence stretches, a void they can't fill. Ashley's head snaps up. "That's not fair. I needed—" I cut her off. "Nothing. You needed nothing from me. Tom's face darkens. Grandpa Joe would be ashamed of you, he says, aiming for my heart. Instead, it steadies me. He taught me to stand up, I say, a small smile curving my lips. This is me doing it. I turn, walk toward the exit, my boots clicking on the tile. Chairs scrape behind me, voices rise, Linda's plea, Tom's growl, but I don't look back. The evening air hits my face, cool and clean as the door swings shut. My lungs fill fully, a breath I didn't know I could take, and I know. I've broken free. The Horizon warehouse buzzes with late shift energy, the forklifts hum a steady pulse against the concrete walls. I'm logging inventory when the security guard, Mike, steps beside me, his walkie-talkie crackling. Carlos, my supervisor, insisted on this after I mentioned Linda, and Tom might show up. His dark eyes had narrowed, knowing. Your folks don't just stop by places, Serene, he'd said. Now, Mike's boots echo as we round the corner, and there they are, stationed by the reception desk, like sentries, demanding tribute. Linda spots me first, her spine ramrod straight in her beige coat. Serene, finally. We've been waiting forever, she says, her voice clipped, impatient. Tom stands beside her, arms crossed, his gray hair catching the fluorescent light. The receptionist, Tara, catches my eye, mouthing silently. 20 minutes. I plant my feet, the clipboard cold in my hands. This is a place of business, I say, my voice steadier than I expect. Not somewhere you can just show up. We wouldn't have to if you'd answer your phone, Tom booms, drawing stares from passing coworkers. His volume rattles the air, a tactic I once shrank from. Mike steps forward, his broad frame, a quiet wall. Sir, I need you to lower your voice, he says, calm but firm. Tom's eyebrows shoot up, incredulous. Who's this? You need protection from your own parents now? Mr. and Mrs. Beck, Mike continues unfazed. Your daughter has requested family discussions happen off company property. I can escort you to the parking lot. Linda's face twists, a mask of wounded pride. We raised you better than this, she hisses. I glance at my watch. I have a meeting in 5, I lie smoothly, the words a shield. This isn't appropriate. Nothing about your behavior is appropriate, Tom snaps, his voice a low growl. Our lawyer will contact you about the money you owe us. The word lawyer sends a shiver through me, but my face stays neutral. 3 weeks ago, it would have broken me. I'll look forward to it, I say, nodding to Mike. Please escort them out. I turn, the weight of their stares burning between my shoulder blades, but my steps don't falter. The warehouse hum swallows their protests, and I breathe easier, my space mine again. My car idles in the supermarket lot. The engines purr a soft anchor after I slip out the side exit, abandoning my cart. 2 aisles over, Linda's voice had risen, sharp and familiar. If you hadn't spent the Crestview funds on Ashley's ridiculous blog expenses. Tom cut her off, gruff. Don't start with me, Linda. This is your fault for letting her. I didn't wait for the rest, my heart thudding but not racing. I'm calm, almost relieved, as I sit here, the rearview mirror catching my steady gaze. My phone pings, a blocked number slipping through. I've always seen how they treated you, the text reads. This is Aunt Karen. If you need someone, I'm here. I save it, a small lifeline from the wreckage. Another buzz? Ashley's card declined at Macy's. A full meltdown caught on video, spreading across Twitter. I don't smile, but something lifts, a weight I didn't know I still carried. Consequences, finally. At my therapist's office, the sage scent wraps around me as I pace. Dr. Lynn watches over her glasses. Tom called yesterday, I say, repeating temporary financial assistance like a spell. She nods. How did you respond? I stop, a rush of pride catching me off guard. I told him I could recommend an advisor. Dr. Lynn smiles faintly. And Linda? I sink into the chair. She called an hour later, saying she wants to fix our relationship. How do you feel? She asks, her voice a calm tether. Like it's the first time she's seen me beyond my bank account, I say. But it's too late. They only reach out because they need something. She leans forward. You're setting boundaries, Serene. That's progress, not selfishness. I nod, thinking of the neighborhood alert. Their house for rent, 3 streets over, the price a quiet confession of their fall. They're sinking, and I'm not. The thought steadies me, a new rhythm in my chest. My new apartment smells of fresh paint and possibility, sunlight streaming through windows twice the size of my old place. I set down a box marked kitchen, running my hands over the oak floors, smooth and cool under my fingertips. The realtor had frowned when I lingered here, signing the lease, but she couldn't know what it means. Space that's mine, not theirs. My phone buzzes, 3 missed calls from Linda, 1 from Ashley, a text from some cousin about their hard time. I delete them all, opening my therapy group chat instead. Moving day, I type. Feels like breathing for the first time. Replies flood in. Congrats, emojis, no demands or guilt. Just understanding from 7 souls who get it. I hang blinds, the fabric rustling as my phone lights up with an HR email. Promotion, it reads. 15% increase. My finger hovers over accept, a strange vertigo gripping me, not doubt, but freedom. I press it and the confirmation hits. My money, mine alone. You deserve this, Jenna says at work, her voice warm over the cubicle wall. She's 30, a friend forged in these months of chaos. Seriously, Serene, nobody works harder. I nod, staring at the screen, the words pulsing. It doesn't feel real, I say, my laugh sharp, genuine. Which part? She asks. Both, I admit. The job, the paycheck unshackled from their grasp. The warehouse feels lighter, today. Carlos's rotation schedule, ensuring someone walks me to my car each night. A buffer I didn't ask for, but welcome. Back home, I unpack a mug, the ceramic cool in my hands, when Mia texts. Spare room's yours if you need it, she writes. I smile, the group chat buzzing again. Celebration, not obligation. My laptop pings at work later, the promotion official, and I catch my reflection in the monitor. The tension around my eyes has softened, my jaw unclenched. I drive home, the city blurring past, and park outside my building, the weight of decades lifting with each step up the stairs. For the first time, I don't calculate what they'll take. I don't brace for their calls. The oak floors gleam as I stand in my doorway, my chest expanding with a breath that fills me completely. This is mine, my space, my life, reclaimed from their shadows. They'll learn what happens when my bank closes, but I'm already beyond their reach, thriving in ways I never dreamed. My car rolls through the dusk, the engines hum a quiet hymn as I leave their shadow behind. The city lights flicker beyond the windshield, a world I'm finally part of, not just funding. Their voices fade, Linda's voicemails, thick with practiced tears, Tom's demands, gruff and hollow, Ashley's pleas, brittle with panic. I delete the family chat, years of when will you visit, when will you send money, vanishing with a tap. My phone goes silent, notifications muted, and the stillness feels like a gift. At work, the promotion settles into my bones. The 15% raise a cushion I don't owe anyone. My apartment glows with morning light. The oak floors a promise kept to myself. Mia's laughter echoes from last night's dinner. My first date in a year, a guy who nodded at my family mess and said, I get it. Boundaries matter to me too. The therapy group cheers my steps. Their messages a chorus of freedom, not guilt. I'm thriving, a bloom breaking through concrete while they flounder. Their house for rent tells the story. 3 streets over, the price a humbled whisper of their pride. Ashley's meltdowns trend online. Linda and Tom bicker in public. Their silver sedan, spotted at discount lots. They face a reality they never prepared for, unready without my cash to prop them up. I don't care anymore, not out of spite, but release. The weight on my shoulders dissolves, each boundary a brick pulled from the wall they built around me. I catch my reflection in the rearview mirror, a smile spreading until I barely know myself. The Bank of Serene is shut, its doors locked, its vault empty. They'll have to swim or sink. I'm already on shore, breathing deep, alive in a dawn they'll never see.